Hi, this is Mia. My kids seem to be upset if I talk about like relationships, even though there's nothing to talk about. So I had to stop the other video. Someone was outside my door. The light is not as good now. I swear it's smoggy outside. Well, it's smoggy outside without forest fires, but it's smoggy outside. So when my kids are outside my door, or there's kids outside my window, yeah, it's really smoggy because there's a red reflection of the sun. I'll take a picture and show you because I don't have like a video camera, so I don't like have a video camera. Um, this is actually I have like a really old video camera. It doesn't work. It's like really old. Let's see if I can get you this picture. Um, I mean it's not. I don't even know. Like there's more red, orange. What's that? I don't know. It's not really that big of a deal, but it's like there's like 3 stripes of really red. And last week, 2 weeks ago, when the forest fires were here, when the smoke was stagnant in Portland, it was really, really red sun. Really, really, like, you could not see the sky if you could even see the sun. You couldn't see blue sky. You just saw, like, haze. And then when the moon was rising, it was just, like, you know how when it's low in the sky, it looks huge. And you, like, double take because you think it's just, like, a glow from a street light or something. It's just, like, you hardly notice it's a moon because all the smog and smoke are like that. But it was, like, super, super blood red. Like literally, like, I got a blood orange once, and like I'm from a small town, so I'm not used to these things, and I'm from back east, and I never heard of an avocado back there, so I see stuff like that, and I'm like, oh my god, like, oh sorry, I forgot to say what I see. I cut into a blood orange once. I don't even know, like, you know, you go to the store, there was like this whole, I think it was from Market Choice, something like that, where they have like so many choices. Instead of just like, here you go, you got these ones or you got these ones. And maybe you have a granite somewhere else. But it's had like all these different kinds, especially in the winter, of oranges. And it was like, I probably didn't pay attention. And because of finances, I don't buy, like, I would like to stock up on stuff, but I will buy like a little, like one thing. Or like from bulk, I'll buy like this little bit of something. And someone saw me yesterday, or like the beginning of the week, buying my son pistachio nuts. And they're like, oh my god, you're buying pistachios in a small bag. And at first I was thinking, maybe he's thinking it's hard to move the thing. But he's like, wow, that takes some, what word did he use? Restraint, not restraint, but like willpower, something like that. Like, and I was like, those little bags of the name brand, I mean, they can go between 2 for $5 up to like $6, $7 a bag. I was like, it's like one kid eats pistachios, one kid eats peanuts sometimes, and I will eat, with me and my rabbit will eat Brazil nuts, almonds, and hazelnuts. I don't really do pecans and walnuts, um, unless they're in the shell. I actually have some in the freezer. The reason I don't do that is because uh, now that people are putting labels on the bulk stuff, and it it is saying that it's made in a factory with milk, soy, shellfish, wheat, and potentially corn, which I'm allergic to, and I'm allergic to tapioca, so you have like things like, say, chocolate covered raisins, stuff like that is covered with tapioca. I get a really bad reaction from all those things I just listed and other foods like coconut. I've been doing kind of cheating with coconut oil. I will eat it right out of the container. I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna like take mascara off, and then I'm just like, "Nope." Like, oh, I was like, oh, that's the type of person. Oh, you know what I should do? Speaking of, I want my sandalwood oil. I want like good smell. So I was trying to make the video before it got dark, and now it's getting dark. So if it like it looks really bright in the video, but I can see that lovely glow. It's almost, I've been watching stuff in Florida, um, because of the hurricane, but I'm like, oh my god, I drove through part of it, and we flew to Miami, drove to Key West, and sailed up the Gulf Coast, up into the Panhandle. I have no clue what city it was. We had problems all the way up and down, and it made the trip, it was a trip where you didn't have to be back home. It was a one-way plane ticket, and I was a student at Michigan State, and I grew up as a sailor. I I keep telling you, with my family, I'm tired of dwelling on the past, and I don't know. It's all about it's all about me. It's all about how I'm feeling or reacting or dwelling on something. I think it has a lot to do why I don't have friends. But I'm trying to take it with a grain of salt. Some of the things I learned as a child that were kind of positive. So sailing was a really big part of my life as a really little kid. And then when the Air Force Base was open, there was a base beach. So my mom had a pretty nice boat, and we went out. I would go out in that. She would never go. I'd always sail with this guy named Tom, like her friend, this man. And he was like my teacher, I guess. Like, I had a piano teacher, I was a ballerina, I had a guitar teacher, I had a sailing teacher. I'd go to swim lessons at the base beach. So because we're a military family, we lived like in literally walking distance of the base beach because we were on the big lake, or I guess the big lake's Lake Huron. We're on Manhattan Lake, and we lived right across the street from the Air Force Base. Literally the runway. There's some houses, like if you walk the perimeter of the fence, there was houses. I didn't know anyone in those houses. I think they were like the big generals and stuff, because they were very segregated. I don't know who's. I think we were around that base so long that you eventually ended up in lots of houses. I was just thinking, this is going to be like part one and a half. I was just thinking of the wildfires and how I see like it looks like haze and smoke in those pockets of the hills over there outside my window. We went on the base. My dad was driving a Porsche 911, and it had a back seat. So I was in the back, pregnant. I think this is when we did that. The base closed down. Okay. When I graduated, it says on Wikipedia 93, but I thought it was 94. So very well could be the finalizing, closing up the BX, closing up, changing things, like contracting to change stuff so that civilians could use it. So they moved the city library there, they built a lot of really nice stuff before the base closed. Maybe for that reason, to give back to the town. And the lake I grew up on was fairly big. It was really big, and like you could see across the lake how that there's houses over there, and you maybe could see somebody backing their boat out of their dock. But we had always had telescopes, so I was always like, my friend was over there, so she'd like wave at the lamppost. She was like way over there. Anyways, long story. So I had all these teachers. We were in a Porsche 911. I was like 9 months pregnant with my son, and my daughter was like 1, almost 2, and we technically the 2 of us, but the 3 of us were in the back. Like technically my son, he was still in there, and my dad was driving like a maniac around the base because it's abandoned. And we got out. I don't think it was. It might have been this time, but it might have been. I might have driven there myself with my daughter. A lot of the houses were burnt out, like how Detroit gets. It's like, oh my god, you want to cry. Like, it's just horrible because you have so many memories. And we went to a park. I don't know what kind of toy it was, but you know how things were made out of real pipes and railroad ties and stuff like that. And like, it was like that was a playground. It looked legit. It didn't look like I went out there as a 3-year-old and put stuff together. It like looked like it was like the really tall slides, the merry-go-rounds, and then the things you climb on. They have metal. Compared to now, I don't know. Now they have like plastic stuff that's got a little bit of nickel coated metal to hold it together, but it's not like it was. Like they're not going to put a lot of teeter-totters, merry-go-rounds in those giant slides. There's a giant slide on the east side. I'm pretty sure it's gone. I don't know. I think that whole playground they tore out, and it was like empty. I don't know why somebody would do that. Like, I don't know. It's like kids are going to get hurt because they're playing on this toy. even though most of them are attended by an adult. But anyways, different story. So I went with my daughter. So I think this was a different time. I think I must have gone by myself because I would have one of my cars, and my dad fixed my Jeep, so my ex-husband, of course, he took my Jeep and left me with the Tempo, but I would put my kid in the back. And the seat was missing from my Jeep. I don't know if we ever found that. It's like bolts in. I don't know, the seat belt, something was missing. Actually, we went traveling when it got fixed. I was sitting in the back, pregnant, without a seatbelt, and I think my daughter was in the front seat in the car seat. It was stupid. Like, but you're thinking like end of 2000, or end of 90s, early 2000s. Like, it's like being a kid and being stranded and getting a ride in the back of somebody's truck. Like, it's just not really. I mean, you can get seatbelt protection in trucks, in certain types of trucks, in the back. But anyways, different story. I was climbing on something and I fell through because it was all rotted. So you see a house and you drive by it for 20 years. This is an example. And there's people in it. People live, people die. There's dogs. They might have a small fire, they rebuild. They might have had a hole in the roof. You see a tarp, but the next time you come by, you see these guys hammering and new tar paper and everything. Um, you see like kids there. You see different cars. You see cars for sale. Like, you see life. And it's like, boom, it's so weird. I thought about this several times, especially coming from Kentucky, West Virginia, in the late 90s, early 2000s. In the hills of these places, the sticks. There, like, I should show you pictures. There was, when you drive out the country, you see a barn that the roof is caved in. So it's like you stop using a place, even if you use a place, and it's got holes. There was literally, our house was originally a tar paper shack that somebody built around the one-room shack and built it into a bigger house, what was called a 5-room house with no hallways. And our house right now looks really fancy from the outside, but it's basically a similar design as a one-room shack with 3 small rooms. It's like I'm a squirrel in this little, like, burrow up here. I wish it was a lot cleaner. So it's that thing where life doesn't stop, but it's like there was tar paper shacks and there was like cartoon chimneys like this with a little triangle on top sticking out the side of the house, and in the shed that would be wide open, it'd be full of coal. So people are literally shoveling coal into a coal burner. That's where my daughter was born, in coal country, literally, literally, literally. And that was a lot of tar paper shacks, and the people that did other things that had some money somehow bought trailers, single wides, but it was a lot of predominantly these houses, these tar paper handmade houses. They were as if I would go out with a truckload of materials to build a house out of this, and you're not really measuring, you're guessing, you don't have a ruler, you're using a handsaw, stuff was crooked, there's gaps in the walls. But our house, like, we went through some major storms. You see the storms. I looked at the storm chart for Hurricane Irma turning into a storm. I see it going out towards Kentucky and West Virginia and Tennessee, and all. I was like, whoa, we lived at that kind of crack of Kentucky, West Virginia, and then Tennessee a few hours south. And then Ohio was really, really close. So it was like 4 states, and it was like a major coal country, trucks, water, poisoning, the wildlife. It was like really, because everything would be so much coal 24/7. Those trucks would go back and forth, full trucks and empty trucks, full trucks and empty trucks. There was so many back roads. We ended up on so many coal mines because we'd go off-roading in my Jeep. And so this was my last relationship. I told somebody that people made fun of me because I was barefoot, and we were talking about being barefoot and being connected to Earth. I was like, well, I was barefoot, and everyone called me hillbilly. And they're like, you're not hillbilly. I was like, I was born in Kentucky. Yes, I was. Like, they're like, that doesn't make you, like, she was like trying to be like, I was like, my thing to do was to watch guys back then, 3-wheelers and dirt bikes, play with my neighbor's dogs because I wasn't allowed to have one, and watch them off-road with their Jeeps. And then I finally got that first vehicle, which was a Jeep Wrangler, and we ended up off-roading and getting, I'm not saying not to hillbilly, like, I don't know a definition, to tell you the truth. I should be careful what words I use. But I would read the Jeep magazine, the 4x4 magazine. I'm pretty sure we were like flat broke, but I'm pretty sure we had a subscription to that because I was really into, like, that is after I went to 4-year college, and I failed one class when my mom died, and so I never got my degree then until later. So, um, that was my last relationship, was on times like homesteading out in the woods. Before I purchased the house, off-roading in my Jeep, going back and forth across the country, eating beans out of a can, not owning a can opener, walking around barefoot. I basically only, well, I was like super broke for after the college and my mom died. So really keeping shoes because I needed to go into stores sometimes, and it's always that sign. Back then, I don't think they do it now. Back then, it was no shirt, no shoes, no service, especially at the sticks. Because yeah, you're gonna just show up. I've seen kids at the co-op completely naked with nothing on, no diaper, no pants, no underwear, no shoes. I'm just like, okay, like, this is major hippie territory. But I'm like, I shadowed a doctor whose daughter's friends they had this big conversation about, oh, I remember your mom like used to never wear clothes around the house, and she goes, I'm pretty sure that, like, as a kid, I remember hanging out at your house, and I'm pretty sure that was the first time I saw a naked lady. I was like, your mom. And I shadowed this person. So just, like, that's not the same. That's more hippie versus hillbilly. So it's like that combination is, like, 20 years later, or like 15 years later, I was at this hippie farm commune thing at a medical clinic learning how to be a primary care physician. And I personally don't feel like I have 3 white coats. I have a stethoscope. I was actually going to buy another stethoscope and blood pressure cuff to keep at the office. I really want to do it. I wonder if I can, like, get it off of eBay, like I sell stuff on eBay. So basically, I was called names, and I didn't understand. I would always be really excited when the country dancing shows would come on, and I'd watch Dukes of Hazzards, and I don't like. My mom suggests I be a country singer. Like, I don't sing very well. I think that would probably be the only way I could sing. I said I was going to go play the piano. So I went back to school, and I became a physician after I um, left my ex-husband. When I left my ex-husband, we lived in a domestic violence shelter, and it took me a few years to get the divorce finalized, but I did separation and custody after I got a restraining order. That gave me temporary custody as long as the restraining order is intact, and I did sign up for supervised visitation, but he refused to sign up. So that's a part of my life. Just some of my background. My parents always would drive Mercedes. I went home from the hospital in a brand new Mercedes in the 70s. I didn't know anything about it. In 3rd or 4th grade, our teacher went around and asked everyone what kind of car they had, mostly Ford, Chevy, Ford, Chevy, Ford, Chevy. And I said a Mercedes. Like, no, you don't. Tell me the truth, you liar. What kind of car do you have? And so that was my first, that wasn't my first, that was one of the early things of stereotypes of why, like, there's no way you can have a Mercedes. And I think it's like because you're black, there's no way your parents are driving Mercedes. But they only had been driving Mercedes. They had an Audi. They did have a truck that I believe was a GMC. I never saw that truck run. I used to sit in it, pretend to drive. It was like, I swear it was like patchwork green and white 70s trucks with no camper on the back. I would sit in there, and the steering wheel was tacky to touch. But I wasn't allowed to have friends really, so I'd go bother the neighbors. This guy Mike, he was my brother's age, and watch him off-road and take care of his dog. And then because I was bored out of my school, I'd make mud pies if I could be outside, play on the lake, go ice skating, go snowman, play in the nature, playing with animals, run around the woods as far as my mom would let me go. I'd play car wash with the bikes and my brother had a lot of outdoor toys, so I play with his stuff, like, you know, the little trucks and our little cars that you do like this. If you had a fire engine, that would be something cool to have in your house, inside of your house. And I'd watch tons of TV, but I'd read tons of books. I'd read encyclopedias. I was trying to read from A through Z. I didn't get through it. And I'd read any book, fiction, nonfiction, medical books, psychology books, computer programming books. And I would do that and watch like Nickelodeon, Double Dare, all these shows. I was watching an old show and they had, it wasn't Double Dare, it was that other show where the brown haired girl, was her name Moose? Who's Alanis Morissette? Was she in that? I swear they said she was in that movie, or that show. I used to watch it all the time. We were one of the first people to get cable TV, so I was like watching really, really old Nickelodeon shows, like really, really old ones. And then they had a ton of the reruns. They don't call it Nickelodeon anymore. I don't have cable, so last time I saw it was called Nick, but they had like all of the old Dennis the Menace, Lassies, and so I was really into watching those people and these farmers and these suburban. Like I didn't know the term suburbia back then, but I was like, wow, Dennis the Menace, he has this huge house and his dad dresses up and they have this nice car and they come and go and there's a park nearby and they have friends in the neighborhood. Like this is weird. Like I'd watch that and I'd watch Sesame Street and be like, I want friends. I want people in the street. I want to go outside and play ball or play hopscotch or walk to the park or walk to the store. So that was like, we ended up in these like projects, these fancy projects in Portland. And we're like, there you go, there's your dream country. You have really crowded, you have lots of people, you have tons of kids, tons of bikes. There's a walk to the park. We used to be able to walk to the park and library, but it was in gang neutral territory. So there was a lot of shootings because this gang, if this was their territory and this is their territory, they stay outside of each other's territory, and that's just danger. But when you're in neutral, they both interact, so then they just start shooting at each other. And they shot up our apartment, not our apartment, but our complex. It was crazy. I spent a lot of time, that was the first time that I spent a lot of time ducking under tables. So I grew up that way, and now I'm in the inner city, and ducking under furniture because of police and guns and gunshots. And we had the same exact thing happen here on the west side twice in, I believe, January during those snowstorms. And during one of the shootings, I was at work and my daughter had just came home. I believe she walked. She ride the bus. She walked right by where the shooting took place. Like she was maybe home for like 5 minutes and they start shooting. This breaks my heart. Like I hate to live in fear, but it's like all this stuff about relationships and not having friends and not having dating or intimate relationships. It doesn't matter as much as having my family be safe, um, and putting it in perspective and be grateful for each day. There was a song. It's starting to get dark, so I'm gonna turn the light on in a minute. There was a song on the Christian radio. Oh, family friendly. My daughter says that was something about the kid left that day and someone died and they never saw each other. Like I don't remember who it was, what the words were. And it was during that time I used to actually say I love you to my kids every night and all the time. And we would ride around these raggedy cars and get stranded in the ghetto. And the car would stop at red lights with no extra lanes, no turning lanes. Oh my God, I just pray, dear God, at least get me off this road. And I always had a cell phone, and people were like, you're in a homeless shelter, you shouldn't have a cell phone. But I got the cell phone. I didn't know they gave them away. I don't know if they did that back then. I had a restraining order. I had a cell phone. We had to at the homeless shelter. We had to park like 3, 4, 5 blocks away, and I always had 7 days a week work, volunteer, classes, counseling, meetings. So I would get home after dark, and it was really scary, fleeing abuse and not being able. Like I feel like we should be pulling up in a gated, freaking armed guard parking lot. Like that's my opinion. That is one of the most fearful things that I did, was running away and having to park like 5 blocks away. Like, lucky I had a car. I rode the bus during the day, but at night I took my car. And to think about potentially being followed and being in the suburb that has no streetlights and being like strangled and thrown in the bushes and have your kids, you don't want to think like that, but it was a lot of silent praying. And I guess I should keep on doing that and not take things for granted. So, this is just like the type of life I've lived. And, hold on.